So welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to a battle that was recently fought on the RP series that is currently ongoing on the Discord. And as far as the backstory to this goes, considering the factions that were involved, it's almost as if this were, what if Sauron did win the War of the Ring? I highly doubt that his vassals and underlings would be all too friendly with one another, even if he was the overall ruler, and EDORAS would be a fine prize for a warlord to lord over his underlings with, and also rival warlords would almost certainly want to take that away from him. So the Easterlings of Rune currently inhabit the Golden Hall, and the Veriags of Karnd look to try and take it away from them. So let's have a look at the army compositions today, and we'll go through, I think, Karnd first, because it's easier to sort of see where the armies begin and end with them, whereas Rune are all mixed together. So we have Tundra's Fox, who has a very large presence, well, a very large cavalry presence on the field today, as you would expect from Karnd, of course. So they have a lot of horse archers, which, regardless of how Rune play this, which I do believe Rune are not just going to sit on the hill of EDORAS. I do think this fight is going to be a little bit more dynamic, so this cavalry should actually come in for some pretty good use, I think. And the horse archers of Karnd, of course, numbers is how they go about their business. They do have some higher tier horse archers, of course, but it really is the numbers which Karnd really press home their advantage on horseback with their bows. Nomadic light cavalry obviously being the lowest tier of this, and he has got several units of nomadic light cavalry by the looks of things. In fact, all of these units here are nomadic light cavalry, so all of them are relatively low quality, but still, in the numbers that they are in, a lot of the lower tier runic units in particular are going to be in a little bit of trouble. Only their more heavily armoured and heavily shielded, more expensive units are going to be able to withstand that sort of volume of fire efficiently. Then we have some Veriag warriors. Not a bad choice against Rune, I must say, because they are technically a heavy swordsman unit, one of the weaker heavy swordsman units in the game, very similar to how the Black Uruks of the mountains are for the Misty Mountains. The Veriag warriors are that for Karnd. They do offer a little bit more skill in comparison to a lot of the other Karndish infantry, but they will still not be able to go toe-to-toe with the more professional units from the Western Kingdoms of Men, the Dwarven Holds, and of course the Elves. And then back here we have some of the more expensive cavalry from Karnd, of course, and you can tell it's an RP battle because all of these units are, you wouldn't see this much Brotherhood of the Bow normally because it just wouldn't be worthwhile with how much it would cost to bring several units of them, but here they are nonetheless. Now they are obviously a little bit more flimsy than the Chieftain's Vanguard, but they can deal similar amounts of damage, if not slightly more amounts of damage, when the unit is at full strength. You could of course have a few hidden units as well. There could be the Brotherhood Shadowblades around here somewhere, but I would imagine that Tundra's Fox's army, you can tell here that he is certainly bringing the vast majority of the cavalry regiments that Karnd have on the field today. Meanwhile, the army just next to him, played by Goddess Nimhain. I've not seen him in a fight for quite some time, actually. Good to see Outfit back. You can see some Veriag bowmen here at the front with the armour upgrade as well, so they're going to be just that little bit tankier. Very important when you're going up against a defence like EDORAS. Even so, they are liable to get overwhelmed if not careful. You know, it's definitely going to need to be a coordinated assault at range if Karnd is going to win in that manner. Then back here we can see several units of Brotherhood of the Sword, very, very good in melee, but in this sort of situation, again, they need to be careful because while they are a little bit tankier, you know, their armour is obviously better than some of the lower tier units that Karnd have available to them, but they do not have a shield, and they are not multiple HP, I don't believe. I think they're single HP. Even if they are multiple HP, though, no, they're not multiple HP. A unit with a size of 103 is not multiple HP. I'm getting them confused with the Dragon's Wrath Guildsman, I think. But regardless, archers are going to be a real problem for them. If they can get into melee, though, very little Rune has is going to be able to go toe-to-toe with them. Dragon's Wrath Guildsman is one such unit, but the skill that these dual-wielding scimitar users have is pretty substantial. Speaking of which, Nurad footmen, both Karnd and Rune, of course, have pretty heavy focus on AP in terms of their more affordable infantry units. The Nurad footmen, of course, not too expensive, but very, very efficient against armoured units. They have a big shield as well, which is obviously going to be important for absorbing arrow fire from the elevated positions. Even so, lower skill values, and also Karnd's lower morale overall can play into the Nurad footmen as well if they're not properly supported. And then 2 units of Nurad Warchief retainers. This could be a very significant addition to the armies. Multiple HP halberds, the phalanx is very, very potent, of course. Armour piercing, we'll see though, because they are still limited in terms of numbers, and Rune will almost certainly be looking to try and focus them down. On the other side, I think we're going to see something similar, so we can see Froggy, who's also got some nomadic light cavalry. He also has some upgraded Veriag bowmen, although he has some Nurad halberds, so more phalanx units. Decent armour, but the lack of a shield is really going to hurt them if Rune turn all their bows onto them. You can see back here some more Veriag bowmen as well. and then a pretty hefty chunk of Variag warriors as well. So once again, a lot of these Khandish units are actually the unshielded units that are in Khan's roster, which could come back to bite them, again, if Rune can use their ranged units effectively. Then Inarius has got some Nuran halberds as well, and you can see, yeah, a lot of horsemen, a lot of nomadic light cavalry, cheap but effective, and then back here 2 units of Variag cataphracts as well, so these knights. It really does depend on how the battle works out, whether all this cavalry is going to be worth it in the long run. There's also some Brotherhood of the Lance here from Froggy, which again, very, very fragile, all things considered, when you see their cost, but very, very damaging off the charge. Anyway, now we'll have a look at the runic defensive positions. A lot of men here, of course, a lot of Eastron hunters, a lot of Eastron guards, so it's worth saying that Rules 1 is going to be one of the runic players. I know that Lister is going to be another one, and then I think, yeah, Metgrim as well. So you can see there's a lot of Eastrons here, a lot of the more basic runic units, but there's a lot of archers in here, a lot of cheap and cheerful units too, so the Eastron clansmen, as far as militia tier units goes, pretty decent, all things considered. I think I'm repeating myself. More Eastron clansmen, again with the upgrades. Some Baltroth tribesmen, the javelins could be very, very useful here. The Carmel shadow bows probably going to be the most significant unit Rune has today, in addition to their crossbows, because obviously with these defensive positions, they could make life very, very difficult for Khand indeed. The vast majority of this infantry though does look like clansmen and lower tier units. There's not a lot of Flagrim. There are a few units of Gamprim dotted around, but there isn't a huge amount of quality from the runic army, so they're definitely going to have to use their ranged to their advantage, because they don't have enough melee quality. Not a single unit of Carmel's chosen even to be found. So without further ado, let's begin. And I'm going to be interested to see how this fight pans out. There's no siege either. Obviously you'd expect that from Khand. The Black Powder Hwacha could be used to pretty devastating effect to these infantry formations within the walls. But ultimately the Hwacha is more of a thing to kill units rather than to besiege a settlement with and destroy buildings. Rune, however, have no siege of their own either, so a lot of times what we see on EDORAS is a catapult or a trebuchet parked on top of the hill here, or even a ballista, and that can make life really, really difficult for the attackers. However, this is what I was talking about, so this is how this fight is going to work out slightly differently to how we normally see EDORAS. Rune are going to be coming out from their palisade walls. Presumably, seeing as this is an RP series, this could simulate somewhat how, starving them out perhaps. If they just stayed here, eventually they would be taking attrition, just to link it back to a campaign. But now they're going to have to come out and meet Khand in the open field, and that's exactly where Khand like to do their business. And considering the overall quality of the runic armies, it's a lot of clansmen they've got, a lot of lower tier units. Khand can certainly make their presence felt here. They've got a lot of bowmen as well that they can use to their advantage, but it's the horse archers and just the cavalry in general which Rune are going to have to be really on the lookout for, because it's a huge amount of clansmen here, but there's 2 units of Variag cataphracts on this side of the settlement which could wreak havoc among these men of the east. I'm sure that Khand and Rune are no strangers to battling with one another. You can see on this side, it looks as though the runic positions on this side are going to hold their ground. If that continues to be the case, Thunderous Fox would probably be best off rotating all of his cavalry around to this side. He's already sending his Brotherhood of the Bow over, so his elite cavalry at the very least is coming over here, getting ready to assist with Froggy and Inarius. Oh man, those frame drops though. There's a lot of moving soldiers here. We move out these strong clansmen, forming up just outside the walls. What's going to be key is how well Rune can support this expeditionary force, though, because they do have a lot of ranged units of their own, of course. I have no idea why the frame rate is tanking so badly. Oof. Not great, but anyway, the nomadic light cavalry continuing to harass. And you can see over here as well the nomadic light cavalry getting into a position perhaps to continue the assault as well. I mean, they may as well use their horse archers in this section of the fight and save their foot archers for later, although it does look as though they are going to be utilising some of their bowmen as well, the Variag bowmen of course, with the armour upgrade. Nice Mongol look with the lamella shoulder armour there. You can see that these men from Rune have gotten quite far away from the walls at this point as the Eastrons flood forwards. This is going to be pretty nasty. The Brotherhood of the Bow have not yet used any of their ammunition, and yet they are charging in. Horse archers, of course, not necessarily the best off the charge. With very few exceptions, they all have a charge bonus of 1, but you can see here The strong clansmen were not really in a position to take that charge, and the mass of cavalry is still enough to do a decent amount of damage, even if the charge bonus is not really all that significant on horse archers. Absorbing a fair amount of arrow fire here, these strong clansmen, as perhaps you would expect. A lot of these archer companies from Khand are firing away, which may not be the wisest idea, as only strong clansmen they're firing at after all. A lot of strong clansmen and hunters arrayed before them. A lot of lower tier troops. I'd be very tempted to save some of my Variag bowmen's ammunition, but you can see here the Khandish cavalry really doing a number on the runic men. These strong clansmen routing and broken. Meanwhile, as we head over to the other side of the settlement, you can see that it's much more how you would expect EDORAS to go on this side. The archers from the attacks are coming forward, trying to poke and prod at the defending positions behind the wooden palisade. It is worth saying, however, that Khand, they do have rams, a few rams, but they are not mounting them just yet, which means they don't actually have a way into the settlement. They're just going to have to sort of settle for doing a bit of damage with their bowmen. Looks as though they're going to cycle around like a huge amount of cavalry. This is what you think of when you think of Khand, just masses of horse archers charging across the open field. You can see that the game's frame rate really doesn't appreciate all of these arrows flying into the same blob of units. The strong crossbows are over here. This is an unfortunate loss, but again, this is part of the rules that this RP battle began with. They had to come out of the walls, so it wasn't a suicidal move from Grim to just send some of his men out here. But well, there's some rangers out here as well, a lot of crossbows, so they will be able to return fire, but this is almost certainly going to be a fight which Khand, if they choose to commit all of these horse archers, will be able to get by far and away the more effective engagement of, or efficient I should say. You can see these strong clansmen are moving forwards, but it's a very broken advance, all things considered. The Variag warriors are moving forward. You can actually see that these Variag bowmen have been engaged in melee by the upgraded strong clansmen. One level of armour upgrade there, the nomadic light cavalry covering their retreat, getting some shots off. You can see that Rune have charged forward to engage in some of these infantry lines, but these strong clansmen, of course, charging into Nurad halberds from the front. There's only going to be one winner in that situation. Brotherhood of the Bow continuing to charge in as melee cavalry for the time being, just to break units off, and that means they're conserving their ammunition for later. The Variag cataphracts are here as well, which the Variag cataphracts in this phase of the battle, where it's outside of the settlement, could be just utterly devastating. These Brotherhood of the Lance, though, from Froggy, charging in, but being scythed down by all of the runic archers and crossbowmen that had taken up position outside the walls. They do manage to charge in, but this is Froggy's general, so he does need to be pretty careful. Brotherhood of the Lance are very, very fragile to that sort of thing after all. Meanwhile, the strong clansmen have moved in to engage the mass of Variag warriors that Froggy has over here, and this is a fight the Variag warriors will very much enjoy. They do not have the armour upgrade, but still, a skill-based heavy swordsman is going to be able to defeat any militia tier unit 1-to-1. The main problem the Variag warriors may have, however, and you can see from over here, they may wear chainmail, but again, they do not have a shield. Any runic archers that decide to shoot at them will be able to do pretty vast amounts of damage. But even so, from a melee perspective, even though the strong clansmen are good, over time this should go in the favour of the Variag warriors, although the morale of Khand being called into question here as the crossbow bolts continue to find their mark. Huge mass of Khandish horsemen there, but you can see that there are a lot of gaps here in the runic formations, and they're just going to have to accept the fact that they are going to take damage. Interestingly enough, however, I don't think Khand are taking the fullest advantage of the gaps that are available to them. The Variag cataphracts could be knocking this outer formation over very, very quickly, even though the strong crossbowmen are here. There are so many gaps, and if you can tie down the crossbows, it would be really, really devastating, especially considering, look at all of those shooting circles that Tundra's Fox has got up. It's almost like the Olympic rings there. But yeah, they're obviously going to do a lot of damage, and you can see here that because the nomadic light cavalry are so cheap, they don't mind if they take a few crossbow bolts, and with the volume of fire that's coming in here, the runic crossbows are falling in droves, and of course when they run out of ammunition, they can just come forward in droves once again, overwhelming these exposed Eastron hunters. Now the Khandish halberds are also moving forward, more nomadic light cavalry, again just getting all up in the face of the runic units. They definitely want to be using their cavalry earlier in this fight, Khand, because when it comes, you know, they've got a lot of their force is made up of their cavalry, and honestly, if they don't have enough infantry to actually force their way through the settlement when all is said and done, they could be in a little bit of trouble here, Khan. Even though it is a 4v3 and the first phases of this engagement have most certainly gone in their favour, this isn't a battle of elites, really. There are very few elites on both sides. Khan, in fact, are the only ones that have elites at all. Can Rune make the situation work for them, however? You can see these Variag Warriors' victory seems certain. Variag Warriors don't have a huge amount of survivability, to be fair, but this is the sort of engagement they should be good at, in theory. They, of course, do have that armour upgrade, which would really be helping them here. These strong clansmen, for a militia unit, when you upgrade them fully, very well armoured for a militia unit, which is a fairly important distinction to make. These strong clansmen, victory seems certain, and you can see here the difference that having a bit of range support on this flank is making, because Rune are winning on this flank. You can see, however, that Inarius is sending forward some nomadic light cavalry. You can see here just these Nurad halberds ripped to pieces by a combination of the Carmel's shadow bows and Eastron crossbowmen. Shadow bows are exposed, but it is only the nomadic light cavalry which have managed to charge in to engage them in melee, so the shadow bows should survive this encounter, especially if these crossbows decide to shoot point blank into the Khandish horse archers. Just look at all those shooting circles, though. The main problem, however, here, you can see the Nurad halberds. They're crippling the centre of Rune's centre. Central Expeditionary Infantry Force. As these strong clansmen, there is a fresh unit over there, but they're taking a lot of damage. The Nurad halberds are just far too strong for basic units of clansmen, upgraded or not. More clansmen are pouring out. The shadow bows are trying to do damage. I mean, there's a lot of masses of Khandish horsemen, which, to be fair, these rangers could do a decent amount of damage for, too. But there's just too many, I think. And the problem is, Khan's army is so quick when you've got so many horsemen that I don't think the rangers are going to have the time to do as much damage as they would really like. And also the horse archers are obviously going to be able to return fire as well, which rangers don't do particularly well in a skirmish fight like this, as you can see. Taking a lot of damage even from the most basic of Khandish horsemen. The Variag mercenaries fighting against their kinsmen. They are out here. They're a little bit better in a skirmish fight than I think all of the other runic archers. These strong hunters are a little bit more substantial in terms of unit size, but still. There are the Variag cataphracts. I mean, the Variag cataphracts you would imagine here. Nurad halberds routing off. This should be a devastating charge. These Eastron clansmen got a little bit too far away from their main force. The cataphracts not charging in, though. That's crazy. They would have done huge damage to those Eastron clansmen. Massive. Probably would have. It could have been enough to even rout them. The charge from knights, especially really heavy-duty knights like the cataphracts, be so lethal. These Variag warriors, though, routing off. You can see that Rune are still being victorious on this flank. These cataphracts need to charge into something. I think Inarius is being a little bit too indecisive here. Because the longer this fight goes on, you can see that the Variag warriors just don't stand up well to ranged firepower at all, and the Eastron clans with their armour upgrades were able to withstand them in melee long enough for those archers and crossbowmen to do the damage they needed to. Here in the middle, Variag warriors have had a little bit more success, a little bit further away from the runic archers, but you can see here just the mass of horsemen continues to push across. Rune may have been victorious over here, but everywhere else Khan have been pushing Rune back pretty consistently. And this Goddess Nimhane's army is where most of the Khandish infantry power is going to be coming from. A combination of Nurad footmen and Brotherhood of the Sword is not something Eastron clansmen can stop, especially not when they're being harassed by cavalry from all angles as well. Absolute madness. More Nurad footmen pulling across. They are being shot in the back, however, so that chunky shield is not going to be useful at all when they're being shot in the back. Decent armour as far as Khan is concerned, but even so. Froggy's Brotherhood of the Lance continuing to try and pick off the low-hanging fruit here. Very depleted numbers of Eastron clansmen, but Rune were victorious over on this wing, and now they're going to be able to pull around. I mean, these Variag cataphracts are coming in now, which is good to see that they're finally getting some charges off. And on the units of this size, Variag cataphracts are just going to easily kill them. Easily. Here come the Brotherhood of the Lance once again. Depleted as they may be, the Eastron clansmen are also depleted. And the Brotherhood of the Lance have got such a powerful charge. Look at that, just mowing them down like grass. More cavalry pushing across. Khan's cavalry is looking substantially less imposing than it used to, as you might expect. But they're still here, still getting up in the face of these runic skirmishers that are outside the palisade. And that will allow them to shut them down for longer. These Eastron clansmen, I think, are on stand and shoot, but they're going to be mulched by even nomadic light cavalry. They're also being shot by another unit of nomadic light cavalry. There's more in the background over there, so Inarius does have some more horse archers he can commit forward to the fight should he need to. You can see Khan's plan for the most part has been to sweep across the runic position before moving towards the gate, but Rune have a pretty hefty amount of Eastron clansmen over here, and in fact they're in such great numbers that they are actually managing to hold the Nurad footmen and the Brotherhood of the Sword at bay, although the Brotherhood of the Sword in particular will slowly but surely manage to make their skill tell. There's also some upgraded Variag bowmen that have been committed to the fight. Pretty decent makeshift infantry, those little round shields and the curved blades they use. Actually pulling back from this engagement now, Khan, resetting, regrouping. These Eastron clansmen are not routing, I thought they may have been, but they're getting ready to charge in, trying to sow as much chaos in the Khandish ranks as they can, although they did just throw themselves at the mercy of Brotherhood of the Sword, albeit only 18 of them. Trying to pin them in place long enough for those archers to get some shots off into the back of this Khandish infantry. A good idea, but now the Nurad Warchief retainers are charging in. Not often you see a phalanx unit charge in like that, but the Nurad Warchief retainers, a bit of an exception to most, as they have decent stats as well as having that phalanx formation. They and the Lothlorien pikes are the two real standouts there. Now they're going to pull back. It does look as though Khan are going to try and regroup, as they have managed to mostly deal with the initial force of Rune that was out here, but you can see that there are still a lot of men clad in gold that are charging forward, and you can see here these Variag bowmen are in danger of actually just being swamped by all of the runic soldiers. Yeah, Khan are going to have to regroup here. Are Rune going to follow them? Would be interesting to see if they do. I mean, Rune still have a decent force left in the town. More men coming down. They still have Gamperin. They do have a unit of Flagrim as well, so they do have a couple Flagrim units, but that's pretty much the strongest infantry that they have available to them. The Shadow Bows are by far and away their best hope of pulling out a victory in this sort of battle. But Rune they're just continuing to push forward. They're not going to allow Khan to breathe. And this unit of Variag bowmen is just going to be overwhelmed and crushed. All about trying to get as many kills as you can, where you can, when you're in this sort of situation with the rules imposed on the runic players. Khan are regrouping, and you know their cavalry is still in fairly large numbers, but Khan need a decent amount of infantry if they are to force their way through the gates. Not to mention the fact that they could really do with some rams. If they really want to tear down the palisade, they do have some over there. Froggy getting ready to move in with a ram. The Brotherhood of the Bow are also moving forward, but there's still a lot of their power bound up in their cav. I'm not sure whether the amount of infantry they have is going to be sufficient to do the job they want it to. You can see over here that some Eastron Guard trying to cover what's left of the rangers and crossbows that were initially out here. Some Eastron clans are moving forward, the clansmen bravely standing in the way of any cavalry that may charge into them. Definitely the sacrificial pawns of the runic army, but as far as sacrificial pawns go, they can hold their own decently well. Those armour upgrades really do help. Alongside the Gondorian Ramasekal garrison, Sword and Shield Militia, it has its uses. They may not have the anti-cavalry capabilities of those wielding spears, but I would say both Rune and Gondor have got options elsewhere, which means they don't necessarily need their militia unit to have spears. Gondor in particular, of course, have got a lot of spearmen, but Rune, crossbows, Eastron Guard, what we've got going on over here. So we do still have that unit of Eastron clans which managed to escape the wrath of the Variag Cataphracts for a time, but I think their luck has run out now. Both units of Variag Cataphracts from Inarius have turned around, and this is going to be the end of the Eastron clansmen. They probably won't even get a single kill from this either, so they're going to try and take the charge. They're in loose though. It's not going to go well for them. At least it was on the sort of smaller side of their unit, so it didn't utterly devastate them, but the problem they're going to have is 3 units of shock cavalry essentially are going to be able to cycle charge in and out. Brotherhood of the Lance, they've also got those horse archers on the side. Froggy needs to be careful here though, he could lose his general. The Brotherhood of the Lance are not at the same level of tankiness as the Variag Cataphracts even at full health, and they're already depleted. Not looking good for them though, is it? Like hungry piranhas devouring a hunk of meat. Here come the horse archers wanting a piece of the action. You can see how weedy their charge is compared to the mighty units that they are accompanying here. Not a particularly fast charge, but even, yeah, that's going to be the end of them. Broken and fighting to the death. The Cataphracts too strong there. So let's have a little look over here, and you can see that Rune are going to be sending forward their archers and crossbowmen first to try and do a bit of damage to the Khandish ranks. Now, Khan still have a lot of horse archers. I think for Rune here, it's key that they don't get too far away from the walls, because they still have support within the walls, which could be invaluable to doing a lot of damage to Khan. But, I mean, I'm still of the opinion here that if Rune can do enough damage to the important Khandish infantry, Khan are going to find it really difficult. Even with those Variag Cataphracts, charging through narrow streets into Gamp Rim is not the sort of thing that they're going to enjoy. Khan are going to return fire, but these Eastron crossbowmen do have a decent amount of stopping power, even though they don't particularly like being under arrow fire themselves. Here come the Variag bowmen moving forwards. With their blades and shields out, they're going to try and charge in to engage the Eastron crossbows in melee, so trying to bait them in. But once again, the Eastron crossbowmen forced onto the retreat. What have we got going on over here? So the Variag Cataphracts moving across what's left of the cavalry from the initial wave of the assault. So things have just sort of calmed down a little bit. We are approaching the halfway point of the battle, and when phase 2 begins, I'd be interested to see how that works out. So the clansmen are moving forward. I'd be very surprised if Rune were the ones to go on the offensive here, because it would leave their backside open for the Variag Cataphracts to charge into. They do have Gamp Rim, but and Eastron Guard, both of which are anti-cavalry units, but Knights are difficult to bring down. And just a few charges might be all it takes to completely rout a line made up primarily of Eastron clansmen. As good as they may be next to their peers, they're still militia. You can see here the Nurad footmen with their big shields trying to cover for the halberds. As the bolts continue to fly in, they're going after the Nurad Warchief retainers, which is wise because, again, from an infantry perspective, the Nurad Warchief retainers are by far and away the most impressive unit on the field today. If they can kill them, Khan's infantry is looking pretty bad. But that's a big if. They still have Brotherhood of the Sword as well. Variag bowmen are moving out to the side. Nomadic light cavalry trying to poke and prod. It's turned into a bit of a skirmish fight after the chaos. You can just see the bodies littered across the field here. There is actually some Eastron clan chiefs from Rune, which we missed. So Rune do have a little bit of cavalry, but they are spear cavalry, actually, the Eastron clan chiefs. They do have a bonus versus cav, but again, against something like Variag Cataphracts, that's going to mean very little. You know, the quality discrepancy is simply too much. But still, could be enough to buy their front line a little bit of time. Could be the critical unit here. Unsurprisingly, the spears are out on the flanks, guarding against any Khandish cavalry. Here are the Cardinal's shadow bows. Body piercing, of course, can be such a potent thing. Over here, Rune continue to go in and out like the tide. You can see that Rune want to commit to an engagement, but they're just, rightfully so, they're being cautious, because if they commit at the wrong time, their whole line will be broken by the power of the Khandish cavalry. Although Khan are retreating an awfully long way. I think they're trying to get all of their infantry out of range of the runic archers, but Khan are pulling back. They're trying to coax Rune forward into the spider's web that is their horse archers. But Rune are not falling for the bait too hard here. They need to commit something forward, and they have. Eastron crossbows trying to do some damage. But yeah, you can see the nomadic light cavalry scattered across the field as their infantry retreats to safer ground. We very rarely see the corners of EDORAS included in the fight, so I'll be interested to see if that is indeed what happens here. Here are the Eastron clan chiefs, waiting for their opportunity. Eastron Guard moving back into position here. Absolute madness. So we're more or less, I guess, at the halfway point now. Very even in terms of the percentage of kills, and in fact, the defenders, Rune, are ahead. Although attackers and defenders might be a bit misleading when it comes to this fight, because both teams have been both aggressive and conservative when called for. This unit of nomadic light cavalry wanted to finish off this unit of Eastron crossmen. They almost were able to, but it's going to cost them their lives. They're routed and broken after a swift reprisal from those Eastron crossbowmen. That's the problem. Khand are trying to harass the runic lines, but Rune have got so many units which they don't mind taking casualties, like the clansmen and just basic units of archers and crossbows, that Khand are really having trouble getting efficiency with these units now. They did earlier on, but now Rune have got a pretty planted position, and also it's not as if they're having to divide their attention. All of these Khandish units are coming forward essentially one by one, which is allowing Rune to focus them down. Those nomadic light cavalrymen got very, very close. They're going to get into shooting circle, although I would imagine they're probably going to retreat pretty quickly. Those Eastron hunters, I think, are out of ammunition, going to be used as melee fodder. Shooting circle doing its best to try and mitigate the damage that is being inflicted upon them. Also trying to absorb a lot of that ammunition so that the valuable Khandish infantry is not subject to it later on. Shooting circle, they are going to retreat now as the Eastron hunters draw ever closer, routing nomadic cavalry. Brotherhood of the Bow are here as well. They are shooting at, probably going after the crossbowmen. Yes, they are. I was going to say, they probably won't be going after Eastron hunters that are out of ammunition. Brotherhood of the Bow are a little bit more... it's a little below their pay grade. Some routing nomadic light cavalry. Once again, shooting circle. This unit of Eastron hunters, I'm actually quite surprised the Variag cataphracts are not nearby. Because if they were, any unit like this that came out to try and engage these horse archers would be squashed immediately. Eastron hunters are not good in melee, and Variag cataphracts are quite devastating, as we've already seen. Nomadic light cavalry trying to do damage. You can see how inaccurate they are, though. The shooting circle arrows just being sprayed all over the place. Eastron hunters, they are going to be able to get into melee, though. I'd be interested to see who actually won this in a prolonged fight, because the nomadic light cavalry are very poor in melee, but so are the Eastron hunters. Eastron hunters have got a lot more men as well. But then again, they are facing a mounted unit. Yeah, no, this is... It was never going to be a fair fight. With the Brotherhood of the Bow, that's going to be enough to kill off the Eastron hunters pretty rapidly. Rune are slowly edging forwards, however. I think probably what they need to do is, if they're going to commit forwards, they're probably going to need to commit forward everything. Go for a Hail Mary, because they're now too far away from their units within the settlement for support to be rendered. This one unit of brave Eastron hunters still hasn't routed, in all fairness, but that will probably change now. Or they'll just die to the last man. Brotherhood of the Bow, of course, a lot of Khandish units are pretty good in sustained melee as far as cavalry goes, and Brotherhood of the Bow are no exception to that. Good skill as the Brotherhood units have to offset the rest of the Khandish infantry line, which doesn't really have that. And that extends to the mounted variant there as well, the bowman. So, all quiet for the time being. You can see Rune, the further they get away from the settlement, the more stretched they become. And again, I'll say it again, those Variag cataphracts would be my main concern if I was Rune here, because well, now we can see that there is a unit of Brotherhood of the Lance coming forward, which that'll be enough to finish them off once and for all. But yeah, those Variag cataphracts, so difficult to kill quickly, so devastating as well. The further you get away from the settlement, the more gaps are going to appear, and that could be fatal for them. Khand, however, pretty far back here, taking up position on this hill, trying to take this settlement, has not been without its pitfalls for them so far. Most of their Variag warriors are gone. A lot of their cavalry, particularly their sort of basic horse archers, have been cut down to size as well. There's still a long way to go in this fight. Here we can see the Eastron hunters are going to start shooting into the nomadic light cavalry, which is on the hilltop. They are going to return fire as well, trying to shoot at Eastron crossbowmen. Only managing to kill off two horse archers actually, before the horse archers dip behind the terrain. More nomadic light cavalry. After such a hectic battle over here, it's been a very cagey affair since then. Rune again slowly but surely edging their way forwards. I don't know whether Rune have got the range firepower anymore to commit forward confidently. I mean, they do have a lot of Carmel's shadow bows, but they would be stronger if Khand were within the settlement, so they were in bigger blobs. But Khand are pretty spread out, which is going to reduce the effectiveness of the Rangers. by a hefty amount. Meanwhile, still a few engagements happening over here. Froggy, again using his general aggressively, the Brotherhood of the Lance, dissecting this unit of East Strong Clansmen, but they do lose yet another rider. Another 2 riders, in fact, or it could be 3, indeed it is. Brotherhood of the Lance are very fragile after all. But still, cycle charging like that is going to yield the results they want. They'll be able to kill off more clansmen. Probably don't want to charge in now though, because the Gamp Brim are right here. Ooh, and now there's runic archers, crossbowmen even. Yeah, so Froggy needs to get his general out of there. Brotherhood of the Bow moving in support. And this is the problem, the conundrum when you're facing off against Khand on their patch. The more open the field, the more spread out the engagement is going to become. The more gaps there are going to be. There are very few factions which can go toe-to-toe with Khand in a just pure cavalry fight. Rune have got good cavalry, but they don't have much of it on display today. Just 1 unit, from what I can see. More clansmen, so they're going to be cresting the hill here, slowly and surely. Some nomadic light cavalry coming in from the wing, but I doubt they're going to be able to achieve much of anything. The East Strong Crossbowmen, 1 volley I think is all it's going to really take to kill them off. They're going to try and sort of come in and out. But eventually when they come in, the East Strong Crossmen are going to be fully restocked. Light cavalry is going to be able to get out of there though, as the rest of the runic infantry begins to take up its position. What do we got here? Some more Brotherhood of the Bow. With the Variag Bowman. The Variag Cataphracts still pulling back, so Khand giving Rune a bit of a wide berth here, but I would imagine when the second engagement begins it will be won and lost pretty quickly. And my money would still be on Khand just because they have those real powerhouse units both on foot and on horseback still in their ranks. Whereas Rune are going to be entirely reliant on their rangers and their crossbowmen doing a lot of damage very quickly. Otherwise it's going to be very difficult for these East Strong Clansmen to remain in the fight. They do have these anti-cavalry units still, as well as some Gamp Brim. East Strong Clan Chiefs retreating back to the town centre. Interestingly enough, so they are keeping units left in reserve, including Baltroth tribesmen. So it may be that they expect to lose the engagement outside the walls, but they want to do enough damage that this skeleton crew of a defence will be enough to then win them the battle. That's a bold move. Personally, I think an all or nothing sort of approach out here in the open field, if Rune want to commit to that, would be the way to go. Still very, very quiet. Let's move up to ×2 speed actually. What's going on over there? Brotherhood of the Bow. Shooting against the East Strong Crossmen. Of course, Brotherhood of the Bow significantly more accurate than the nomadic light cavalry. So they will be finding their mark, and the East Strong Crossmen don't have the best of armour. Returning salvo from the crossbows, though, could be pretty devastating for Brotherhood of the Bow. Chieftain's Vanguard are the tankier option with regards to Khan's higher tier horse archers. Rune continue to move forwards. We've got that more Brotherhood of the Bow. Let's go back up to ×2 speed. Or even ×6 speed actually. I think all things considered. A few units getting stuck in over here, but they are very few and far between. I think this is a general actually. Indeed it is, it's Froggy's general. As he dives right on into the Carmel's shadow bows, wielding his large glaive. He's playing a very dangerous game so close to the Gamp Brim. So I don't think it'll matter too much. I think the crossbows are likely to pin him in the back. I don't know though, he's going to get out of range. I don't think Froggy will be trying that again with the crossbows on patrol. No, they're still in range. He's going to be able to get away though. Impressive. Keep an eye on those 2 units over there though, because that is both Tundra's and Froggy's general. Rune continuing to slowly but surely make their way forwards. And here you can see once again the East Strong Crossbowmen pressurising Khan's cavalrymen. Decent volley there, killing off several Brotherhood of the Bowmen. Here comes Froggy's General, and this is, again, akin to the last Samurai if the runic players were paying attention. But once again, he's going to be able to get a charge off, and he's going to be able to scythe through 2 more Carmel's Shadow Bows. 3, 4. He's on a tear. Again, these kills may not be the most important thing in the long run, but still, it's interesting to see single men like this continue to be useful in the battle. Of course, he is technically a Brotherhood of the Lance, so he does have that meaty charge bonus, which is definitely going to be enough to kill the unit models after every charge, although he's really riding his luck here. He'll be very lucky if he survives this next volley, I think. Look at this, crossfire. There he goes. And there he goes. Bold, but bolder than a rooster. And continuing to slowly but surely shift their way forwards. It's only a matter of time before they come in range of what's left of Khan's archers. Then they'll probably have to pick up the pace a little bit. They have, after all, decided that they are going to be the aggressors here. Meanwhile, nomadic light cavalry, shooting circle, very depleted units of Eastron Clansmen, so these are very much peripheral engagements. The bulk of the runic army, however, is continuing to move forwards, and they still have a decent amount of men, honestly. A lot of it is very basic stuff. They do have a few units of quality, like the Flag Rim and the Gamp Rim. This will be a test of what Khan are able to withstand here. There's still a lot of clansmen. I think those cataphracts are just going to be too much. They still have halberds, they still have the War Chief retainers. There they are. But we're just going to go up to times 6 speed until a real engagement happens now, which shouldn't be too long. As Rune continue to move forwards. Oh, actually that is... Is it not? Yes, it is. Khan are now once again fighting Rune, infantry unit to infantry unit, Eastron Clansmen, but this is a depleted unit of Variag warriors. They're very far away from support, so I would be very surprised if they did not break here, especially seeing as they are now being attacked in the rear by another unit of Eastron Clansmen. They're getting a little bit of support from the Brotherhood of the Bow, but it's not going to be enough. There's simply too many Eastron Clansmen to actually shoot and kill. There are the Eastron Crossbowmen marching forwards. More Eastron Crossbowmen. Forcing the Brotherhood of the Bow to retreat, actually. Which, that could be key. I mean, you can see now that Khan are moving forward, so this is the business end of the fight. I think Khan realised now that they're out of places to retreat to. They're up to the red line of the battlefield. Rune are just going to squeeze the life out of them. They need to engage with their infantry and hope then that the gaps appear for the cataphracts and the rest of their cavalry to get in behind these runic infantrymen. The Variag bowmen are charging in. Decent makeshift infantry, but it's a lot of clansmen they're going to have to cut their way through. Both units upgraded to their fullest. Over here we can see that there are some Eastron Guard facing off against the Variag bowmen. Eastron Guard, of course, decent in terms of the damage they can deal, as well as being a good anti-cavalry unit. Eastron Clansmen over here with more Eastron Guard doing damage to the Variag bowmen, but this is where Khan are going to have to be on their A game with their cavalry. It's still very easily winnable, but those 2 units of cataphracts need to move in and do some damage now. Because again, that strategy where Runes still have a couple of units in the fortress. The cataphracts will be useful here, not in the settlement, and they need some infantry to do some damage in the settlement. Variag bowmen in good quantities. Brotherhood of the Sword are on the front line as well, which will probably be the target of any runic skirmishers that are nearby, because if they aren't, they'll be able to cut their way through Eastron Clansmen all day long. And there are the Eastron Clansmen, more Brotherhood of the Sword. You can see here these Eastron Clansmen are trying to get in behind enemy lines, but they too have been intercepted by Brotherhood of the Sword, and now here come the Nurad War Chief retainers. There's nothing Rune have which can beat them one-to-one. They're going to have to rely on their skirmishers, or just outmanoeuvring them. Which, considering the static nature thus far of the runic cavalry, although Khandish cavalry, but now the Variag cataphracts are moving forward. Here come the Eastron Clansmen, there's some Flag Rim, the crossbow bolts whistling by, killing off a couple of the cataphracts, but the cataphracts can't afford to be too meek here. They need to charge forward and get into the guts of the runic army, I think. Because the longer this infantry engagement goes on, the more it's going to go against Khan, I think. The Flag Rim are coming forward now, that additional AP will be very useful. Khand are not the most heavily armoured faction there are, but still, the Nurad units and the Brotherhood of the Sword's armour is decent. And these are also pretty decent blobs for the shadow bows to shoot into as well. And if it comes down to a question of numbers, Rune are going to have the advantage there. Brotherhood of the Bow are able to rout off those Eastron crossbowmen, a good target to go after. Meanwhile here you can see this is what Khand should really be working towards, causing havoc in the runic back lines. Brotherhood of the Bow doing a lot of damage here, getting involved with the Eastron crossmen, stopping them from firing. Shadow bows that are out of ammunition charging forward to really put more pressure on the Khandish infantry line, but here you can see the Nurad Warchief Retainers' defeat is a distinct possibility, interestingly enough. I assume that's because of range pressure that's being put on them from elsewhere. Yeah, it is. You can see that they are being shot by something. In the background over here, these Nurad Warchief Retainers are being shot in the back by crossbowmen. Still a lot of cavalry around, however, and now Khand are, you know, surrounding Rune, which is what should be happening. Question now is, though, I mean, Khand have taken a hefty chunk of losses from their infantry. Will they have enough left to actually take the settlement? There's not a lot left in the settlement from Rune, but there's Baltroth tribesmen, there's war chiefs. We'll see. I would still think that Khand would probably have enough, because there's so little left in the settlement that honestly the knights probably would be able to just smash their way through. And you can see here in the middle, the combination of Nurad Warchief Retainers and Nurad Halberds is starting to have a real impact on the runic line, and there goes a rout from the Eastron clansmen. The Khandish horsemen rear charging them, morale shocks, and this is the problem, they are militiamen, so you can't expect the world from them, and now they're running from the field. You can also see here that these charges are going to be really lethal as well. The Variag Cataphracts coming in here, doing lots and lots of damage. The longer this fight goes on, you can see now that without the Eastron clansmen, that was a lot of their manpower on the front line, and the fight has tipped in favour of Khand pretty heavily. Variag bowmen are over here. There are still some units that are still standing and fighting. The Eastron Guard made of sterner stuff than the Eastron clansmen, but ultimately I don't think they'll be able to do much. I mean, the Warchief Retainers are very, well, they're more depleted than they were, and they are a superior halberd unit to the Gamprim they are fighting. They'll probably take a few more casualties, but they'll also probably get more reinforcements headed over to help them before too long, so musing on who would win that is rather a pointless endeavour, really. Still some units trying to cover the rear, the Eastron crossmen still trying to do their thing. Crossbow bolts shooting into the side there, scything through those Brotherhood of the Sword. And the Variag Cataphracts are still in pretty good health. Flag River in decent health as well. This is going to be the end of this very small pocket of resistance from Rune. Cataphracts, lances down, trampling them into the dirt. There are these Eastron Guard over here. There's still some horse archers as well, picking away at the runic infantry. See over here is now, as well now, the Nurad Warchief Retainers getting involved with the crossbows. The Flagrim trying to get in their way, but the Warchief Retainers, as I said, by far the strongest infantry unit on the field today. And despite a valiant effort, I don't think the runic skirmishers have killed enough of them to have victory in this fight. Gamprim fighting back to back against the two scariest Khandish infantry units that are on the field today. And there's more Variag bowmen on the way here as well. With their phalanx broken, it's only a matter of time. The Brotherhood of the Sword will gut them. Nurad Halberds pushing in as well. Outnumbered, but yeah, you can see there's Eastron clansmen routing from the field. Horse archers still up there. Some Brotherhood of the Bow are on their way over to the settlement, interestingly enough. Try and charge in, but there's still Baltroth tribesmen. Javelins can be a potent tool, but there's going to be too much left for them to do, I think. Warchief Retainers here, killing off the shadow bows. Two very violent and bloody engagements. There's still some runic units over here, to be fair, but they're only clansmen. The quality that Khand have is still going to be just too high, I think.
Warlord has been slain.
There goes the general. Yeah, these Gamprim broken and fighting to the death. Unsurprising, look how outnumbered they are. 9 Brotherhood of the Sword. The shooting circle's still in effect as the Eastron clansmen try to route back to the town centre, but they're going to be ridden down. Eastron Guard also routing. The Gamprim, the only ones left. And they've been, well, they've been being consistently harassed by those horse archers on the hill. And now it's going to be the end for them. Now they're being engaged by the war chief retainers. Here are the Variag cataphracts again, just charging into the back of the Eastron clansmen, doing a ton of damage once again, pulling out those axes in melee. Brotherhood of the Bow is still there. There's still a decent amount of Eastron guards. Some crossbowmen are still firing, trying to do what they can. Again, getting a point-blank volley off into the Nurad war chief retainers. They've been made to work for this victory, Khan, but I think as the fight goes on, more and more it's looking like Khan are going to be the victors here. Aha. Some Nurad footmen. Being surrounded somewhat by the Eastron Guard. Again, though, the problem is just going to be that Khan are going to have far too many strong units left alive when all is said and done, unless all of those routing units do actually come back from routing and they can put up enough resistance to actually defend the peak of EDORAS. It's not going to work out for them. Nomadic light cavalry once again in shooting circle. Loosing their arrows. Brotherhood of the Bow and Variag cataphracts now riding as one. What have we here? Nurad war chief retainers, Brotherhood of the Sword, all of the best stuff really. Finishing off this marooned unit of Gamperim. And the runic armies now surely are on their last legs. Forward come the hordes as well, and you can, even after a long fight like this and even after losing so much cavalry, they still have this big clump of horsemen left. The Khandish experience. And there goes the runic army, really. What have we here? Look at all the bodies. In fact, Rune, I think they are going to meet their fate more honourably than that. They're going to bring the Baltroth tribesmen outside. They're also going to bring out the Eastron clan chiefs, which is actually rules as general. And they're going to go for perhaps a valiant last charge. Again, they don't stand a chance against the Variag cataphracts, but still. Let's go for ×6 speed. I mean, at this point, Khan really may as well just charge forwards. Oh. Eastron clan chiefs did look like they were going to charge forward there. I mean, we should give Rune the heroic end that they deserve here. Rather than just shoot them to death, although it may be fitting for a Khandish army to do so. I think they've earned death in melee. Just send forward the Variag cataphracts to clean up what's left of the runic army. You'll be all done. Just have a look at this. Close though. Closer than you would expect from the defenders being recklessly aggressive as the rules dictated. They had a lot of crossbows and rangers, of course, without which they probably would have really struggled, but still. Their armies were of lower quality overall. A very strange way that Khan is choosing to close this fight out, however. And come on, just charge in and kill them off once and for all. It's going to be up to Rune to charge into them, which is a bit of a shame. Again. Respect points knocked off for that, from a Khandish perspective. I think Rune have been very accommodating to Khan in this fight. They've definitely been the aggressors throughout the entirety of the fight, and they've done very well with this. So I think the moral victory goes to Rune here for doing a good job. I mean, I get it, it's an RP series. You know, you need to try and retain the lives of your men as much as you can, because these losses will carry over. But still. Is there no honour in war? Here we go, Brotherhood of the Bow. I think this is it. This is going to be the last samurai moment for rules as general. And no, he's actually going to wave off. I thought he was going to accept his fate then and charge into the Brotherhood of the Bow. I mean, it might be taken out of his hands somewhat. I don't know what he's really going for here. There's not really any soft targets left that he would be able to kill off a great deal of. I guess there's some Brotherhood of the Sword there, which he might be going for, but no, he's going to get surrounded here. Unfortunately for him, his general is the one that got left behind. And there are the Nurad War Chief Retainers. They're going to try... Oh, they missed the charge on the Brotherhood of the Sword. So they were trying to kill off that unit entirely, but they're not going to be able to. His general is still here. Look at this madman. Baltroth Tribesman's still just waiting over there. The general... I mean, he needs to get away from there. He absolutely doesn't want to be anywhere near a War Chief Retainer. As the hordes of Khandish cavalry continue... Yeah, they're routing. Unsurprising. Right. Aha. Here we go. So this is going to be it. This is going to be the end. As the Javelin men do a decent amount of damage there to the nomadic light cavalry, but the light cavalry are going to charge in. Again, not the best charge on just basic units of horse archers like this, but it's a question of volume at this point. Baltroth Tribesmen trying to get as many kills as they can, really make Khan work to be the new Lords of EDORAS.
1,000 curses. Our men are running like cowards. Rally them before victory runs away with them.
Baltroth Tribesmen going to try and get another volley off. Here come the Brotherhood of the Bow. I'm really surprised, honestly, the Variag Cataracts have not come forward and just obliterated them, because they could. And I guess they're trying to save their Variag Cataracts for the RP, because they're such an important unit, and I would imagine they're difficult to replace, but still. This is the sort of... You know, they could have had this done in one charge, quite frankly. And they're losing a lot more horsemen doing it this way, really. The last stand of the Baltroth Tribesmen, and Khan will become the new Lords of EDORAS. They're really being very accommodating to Rune here. Would I say that? Now they're recharging. That should be it. The Brotherhood of the Bow. Just a question of mass. It's going to be too much for the Baltroth Tribesmen to withstand. Broken and fighting to the death. That's surely going to be it. Yeah, there we go. So they admit defeat, EDORAS has fallen, and Khan's banners will be flying over the Golden Hall this evening. Just look at all the dead bodies out there. A very violent pair of engagements. Close though. I think Rune did better than I expected them to there, considering the rules laid out for them. Good kills all around, Lister doing very well. I would imagine that comes down to him having a good combination of crossbows and rangers and positioning them well. Large armies from Rune, but obviously of lower quality than the Khandish ones. A lot of cavalry from Khan, a lot of good infantry, so it's not a great surprise that they ended up winning considering the rules. If it had been a situation where Rune were allowed to stay within the settlement, Rune probably would have won that, because all of that cavalry would have been much less effective, and the crossbows and the rangers would have been lethal. But again, it was a siege situation. I would imagine it comes down to them being starved out and having to charge out and deal with the besiegers. So of all the attackers, Froggy actually did the best, which is good to see. Tundra's Fox with a lot of those horse archers as well, doing quite well. Goddess Nimhain getting the fewest amount of kills, but then his infantry was only really committed towards the tail end of the first engagement and then in the second engagement. Having a look at the stat screen, so Lister, let's see, Clansmen doing very well, which is unsurprising. They seem to do well across all their engagements. Gamprim probably focused down, but you can see Shadow Bows doing very, very well. A lot of rangers, but on the open field, when they're trying to face off against cheap horse archers and sort of cheaper archers, it's not the ideal situation for them, but they still got a lot of kills, 214, 239 though. One of the Clansmen was actually Lister's MVP. Down here, 246 on his strong crossbowmen, again not too surprising perhaps. That they are included in the MVP list from Grimm's army. Grimm's army overall, a few units excelled, the rest of his army not so much, but then he was the first one to charge out onto the field and took the brunt of the initial Khandish assault, so again, not too surprising. Rules, meanwhile, 245 kills there on some Eastron hunters, so again, the cheap archers, the cheap crossbowmen, and the rangers proving themselves to be the best units for Rune, but in the end it was just the elite units for Khan, the Knights, the War Chief Retainers, the Brotherhood of the Sword, all of those sorts of things, and the fact that they had to go out into the open field to face Khan, it was always going to be very difficult for Rune, and I'm not really too surprised that they lost, but they put up a good fight, and that's all that matters. So yeah, big thank you to Lister for sending this one to me. I always quite like these RP battles, they're always quite interesting with how they work out. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.